Hello everyone, it's Oliver Harper here. As some of you may be aware, I'm running a Kickstarter for my upcoming documentary on Street Fighter 2 called Here Comes a New Challenger. It will detail the impact of the game and how it became an important part of our childhood. If you would like to know more about the project and are interested in supporting the Kickstarter, you can find a link below. I first played Street Fighter 2 when the fair came to my hometown in the early 90s. I of course had heard of the game through friends and reading gaming magazines. But I was so excited to finally play it after all the hype, and when it eventually hit the Mega Drive, it was the game I rented every week, as I certainly didn't have nearly £50 in pocket money to buy it. Joining me for this podcast, I have retro gaming experts Kim Justice, Daniel Ibbotson from Slope's Game Room, and Guru Larry to chat with me about their early memories of Street Fighter 2, to see if they experienced the game in a similar fashion to me. And we'll explore the various updates to the game, how it dominated the arcades, and of course our free time, as we all spent hours playing it with friends and family in our lounge or bedroom. So before we start chatting about Street Fighter 2, let's have a quick discussion on Street Fighter 1. Now, I had never played the first game and was totally unaware of it when Street Fighter 2 hit the scene, so let's kick it off with Larry first. Had you played Street Fighter 1, or like me, never heard of it?
Well, from memory, we used to go to my infant school used to go to a local swimming pool, Highgrove, and there's like an arcade machine in the back of the bar when we went past, and they always had two machines. One of them was Ninja Gaiden, and the other one was a Street Fighter 1. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what the game was. All it has is those big pneumatic buttons on it, the big pressure pad ones, and I just wondered what it was because it's just too big. I thought it was like a drum game or something originally because there's just too punchy things on there, so I never actually played it. I just saw the demo mode in the background. But I think my first memory of home computers is always that box art for the home computers version, that guy wearing the brown leather jacket with his back with Street Fighter written on the back.
It's a bit like the Warriors, isn't it? Sort of Streets of Fire sort of design.
Of course, British artists are completely incapable of any originality with their artwork, so so that's my memories of that. I had no interest in it. I didn't really like one-on-one fighters because they had some on home computers and always completely crap. So I just thought Street Fighter was no others. So I never actually played it until years later.
So what about you, Kim? Did you play the home micro ports, or did you sort of get a chance to play it in the arcade? Well, because you lived in Southend.
My memory's a bit hazy. But I seem to remember that I definitely played the original Street Fighter on Spectrum. It was a bit-tier export, and it was absolutely awful. I don't remember even. I definitely remember I must have played it because I think I had it on it would have been a US Gold title, so it might have been on the older Kicks budget label at the time. Really, really horrible port. I might have played that before playing Street Fighter 2, but I'm not entirely sure about that. The arcade, I definitely played the arcade a couple of times. Both different versions. Like, you had one version that was just normal, and as Larry said, you had the one with the big buttons, the massive buttons that you're supposed to hit. It never worked. Because obviously, you've got kids and adults who are just smashing buttons. Yeah, of course, the arcade had no lifespan at all. I mean, it's an awful game. It is just a really diabolical shit game. I mean, I've played it loads of times since then, obviously. The only main thing that kind of makes me laugh about is like the speech samples, like some of them, because they're just so bad quality. It's when you beat some... It is so, and it's almost impossible to even do like special moves. Like you can the special moves are the same. They're the same button commands. Like the Hadouken and the Shoryuken, they're all the same commands, but the timing of them is so tight. Like it's so hard to actually pull them off. Like they really loosened it for the sequel.
I do love that. I do love the voice acting. It's like, can you do another take, but don't use any consonants in this one, please.
And I love the character. Like, there's a few characters in there. I mean, most of the characters in Street Fighter 1 have appeared since.
Yeah, they sort of brought them back for the Alpha series.
But then you have the ones like Geki. I think Geki never did. I don't think Joe Don't think he did. I think they skipped Joe. And there's the China. What's the
Oh,
Chinese
yeah.
one?
No, he's come back. He's in Street Fighter Alpha 3, I believe.
There's Gen, wasn't it?
Gen, yeah.
Was it?
Is
it's
it?
Alpha 2, isn't it?
Oh no, I'm not. No, I'm not talking about Gen. No, there's another one. He's got a hat on.
That narrows it down.
He's very, very stereotypical Chinese.
Retsu hasn't come back ever, has he?
Retsu never came back.
Joe. Well, everybody thought Joe was that guy who gets punched in the intro of Street Fighter 2, wouldn't they? But they retconned to saying it's not him. Oh, Lee, the other guy, yeah.
That's it, Lee, yeah.
So, Daniel, for you, was it a different experience being introduced to the game, or was it a similar situation to me?
Yeah, I definitely had never heard of Street Fighter 1. Again, my memory is quite hazy, because I remember getting any kind of home computer magazine I could, and I was like religiously obsessed with them. I lived in the sticks, and there was like didn't really get to go out too often, so I would just be looking at these magazines from cover to cover all the time. And I definitely would have heard about it, but for me, I was such a loyalist, which is a better way of saying a fanboy back in the day. I was really into Yaya Kung Fu, and I didn't want to play any other kind of one-on-one fighting game.
So did you convince yourself when Street Fighter 2 came out that Yaya Kung Fu 2 on Amstrad was better?
No, by that time, my Amstrad was collecting a thick layer of dust in the attic. I'd heavily moved over to the consoles by that point. But yeah. I mean, there was no getting away from Street Fighter 2, but yeah, I don't think it definitely didn't make any kind of an impact on me if I did know about it. I didn't know about it back then.
Were you guys confused by they changed the name of Street Fighter 1 for the PC Engine to Fighting Street?
No, because I didn't have a PC Engine.
No, I never, yeah.
Yeah, but if you look back now and you see it advertised, why is it, a different name? It's bizarre.
Because it was in a Sonny Young film called Street Fighter, and they wanted to avoid copyright or something.
Okay, well, let's crack on with Street Fighter 2. So what was your first memory of SF2? And did you catch it in the arcade, or did you kind of wait till, it sort of popped up on the Super Nintendo? So for Kim, how did you sort of experience it?
Yeah, when I started going to arcades, or when my mum and dad started taking me, probably about 1992, Street Fighter 2 was by then in pretty much every arcade. You couldn't get away from it. Very popular. And just immediately, as soon as I played it for the first time, I think that's the first, probably, I obviously played, some one-on-one games before that, but again, we're talking, really shit ones on the Spectrum here, like the port of Street Fighter 1. So to play Street Fighter 2 for the first time was, just, blown away by all the sort of stuff you could do, and immediately then was trying to figure out, the moves and that, because I think some of the cabinets did have the moves on it. I swear you could get all the moves on them on the outside. So trying to figure, it's oh my god, you can do the fireball and that, and having all the fireballs, the spinning pile driver was always the one that made me go because I was a big wrestling fan as well. So yeah, played that every week. Was playing a bit of Street Fighter when we went to the arcades. Waited a long time to see if it was going to come out on the old trusty Spectrum. I remember it being advertised in your... I remember being heartbroken because I remember it being advertised the Street Fighter 2's coming to your Sinclair. We're going to review it. And it's Street Fighter 2's coming to the Spectrum. Because you have to... Yeah, I was about 7 at the time. And then I was heartbroken because then my shop stopped stocking your Sinclair because no one was buying the Spectrum anymore. So I never got to see the demo. No. Or whatever. And then around that time, it was okay, time to move on to consoles and that.
So what about you, Dan? Did you sort of, was it the similar experience to Kim with the arcades, or was it just playing around with friends on the Super Nintendo?
I have a vivid memory because I went to a school with so few kids. There was only 10 kids in my year, and everyone just happened to have a Mega Drive. So I literally went to a school where everyone had Mega Drives. And I didn't know what a Super Nintendo really was unless I went to the shops, and saw one there. But I vividly remember seeing this enormous display, almost like a little corner of a shop where it had nothing but Street Fighter 2 bezels up and big cardboard cutouts and this really nice section. And I was always obsessed because I was so into animation of finding games that looked like real life cartoons, and obviously jumping from the 8-bit Amstrad days to the Mega Drive, things like Castle of Illusions, stuff like that really blew me away. Oh my god, we're getting closer to playing a real cartoon. And I remember I had this cousin that we got back in contact with at that time in my life, and he had a Super Nintendo, I had a Mega Drive. When I went on holiday, I gave him my Mega Drive, and when he went on holiday, he gave me his Super Nintendo, and it had Street Fighter 2 on it. And I was like, I mean, I was more into like playing, you know, like the Disney Aladdin and stuff, because I was very much into my platforming. But for that 4 weeks, I played Street Fighter 2 so much and got so into it. I can no way play it as good as I could during that one time, but that's when I got really, really into it. And I was also quite fascinated by seeing how close games were to the arcades. I didn't have an arcade near me, so most of my arcade memories are from like those carnivals that would come round. You know, like I remember seeing here Turtles for the first time there. I remember seeing Street Fighter 2 for the first time there, and a few others. But yeah, I mean, that's really when it blew up for me. It didn't honestly grab me enough because I was quite heavy into my Mortal Kombat. I was very much into violence over gameplay, I suppose. For I don't even know how old I would have been, maybe like 8 or 9 or something like that. But maybe a bit younger. But yeah. I mean, I enjoyed it during that time, but I didn't really fall in love and play Street Fighter properly until actually Street Fighter 3 for the Dreamcast. But during that one small amount of time, I got quite into it. Vivid memories, good memories.
So Larry, did you manage to import Street Fighter 2 like many gamers at the time on the Super Nintendo, or play it in the arcade first?
Well, the first time I can recall seeing it was on holiday to Felixstowe. They had it in an arcade there. But this was quite late in the release of Street Fighter 2, so I was seeing arcade machines called Street Fighter 92.
Oh, so that would have been Champion Edition, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's Championship Edition, but that's what they called it at the time, and that's what I played it. Yeah, I sucked at the old fireball characters. I always played the charged ones like Blanca and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I imported it. I mean, I tried to get hold of a Japanese copy when they were like £100, and that was just absolute nightmare. And luckily, I got it when it first came out in America. The CEX had a market stall in Wembley Market, and I got it from them. I remember getting it from them.
You had to pay £100 for it as well, still.
No, I paid £60 for it, so I was a bit lucky.
Oh, that's a bit more reasonable,
yeah.
isn't it?
But yeah, I always remember that. I've seen it for 100 because it was the biggest game out at the time. Everybody,
you couldn't get away with it, no matter what you was into. Like, it was in your face, wasn't it? Big time.
It was like, if you had a Mega Drive, it's like, oh, when's it going to come out for the Mega Drive? Is it going to come out for the Mega Drive? And it was, I mean, because I had Mega Drive first, and yeah, I had to once it came out for SNES. That was kind of like the reason why I wanted a SNES.
Mean Machines were saying that it would never come out on the Mega Drive, didn't they?
Yeah,
I remember hearing that.
That aged well.
That and Final Fight would never come out on the Sega. So.
Both of those things aged well.
Yes.
I mean, you've all kind of touched upon the sort of impact of Street Fighter, and everyone's kind of playing it. What would you sort of compare its sort of popularity with sort of games today? Would you sort of say Fortnite has probably captured the same sort of impact and popularity of Street Fighter 2 at the time, because it was such a big deal, because it was everywhere, it wasn't on every game magazine. They always put it on there every month to sort of entice you. There was merchandise everywhere, there was sticker albums, action figures sort of came along a year or two later.
Yeah, you could only compare it really to something like a Fortnite for like modern days. Like, I mean, obviously you have other things that get big potentially for a bit, like, I don't know, I guess Among Us now is kind of the thing, but there's the level beyond that. And yeah, like something like Fortnite would be obviously the example, as into how influential the game was as well, because I mean, how many games after Street Fighter, suddenly there's loads of other fighting games. There's tons. There's Fighter's History, Tough Enough.
Body blows. I'm sorry about that.
There's all these fighting games that are just rip-offs of Street Fighter.
Do you think SNK was a good competitor to Street Fighter 2 at the time, as some saw their early titles as rip-offs of Capcom's famous sequel?
A lot of them, the defectors who worked on Street Fighter, wouldn't they? Because they didn't like how Capcom was leading, so they went off and made their own game with SNK. And that's how Fatal Fury began.
SNK games were awesome. I mean, I love the original Fatal Fury, Samurai Shodown, Art of Fighting. I mean, Art of Fighting is probably the biggest of the most like serial like rip-off of Street Fighter. You've even got the main characters called Ryo, Not Ryu. Ryo.
Because we mentioned obviously things like the updates and Street Fighter 2 92, which you kind of sort of highlighted, Larry. So with these kind of updates with Champion Edition and Hyper Fighting and the Super Editions, did you feel at the time they were such a kind of a leap in improvements? Because once the magazines were sort of saying, oh, we've got the Turbo Edition, you got this faster gameplay, Chun-Li can do a fireball, and then we had the Super ones with like 4 new characters. Was it exciting to see these updates, for example, Kim?
Super Street Fighter 2 was, certainly. I mean, by the time that I got into Street Fighter, I think Champion Edition was already around. So they still had the ones where you could play as the bosses. And obviously you had Hyper Fighting as well. I don't really remember much about Hyper Fighting or Turbo or whatever. Super Street Fighter 2 was really exciting. Although I do think that by the time Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo came around, I mean, obviously this is long before the term existed, but it was starting to become a bit of a meme in magazines. Like, people wondering, well, where's Street Fighter 3? Are we going to get Street Fighter 3 soon? I guess the reason for that is because we weren't used to having all these different versions of what could be considered the same game. Like, it wasn't really a thing. Not in home releases, no, definitely not. Oh yeah, and of course you had Special Champion Edition for the Mega Drive, and that eventually came out. So you had all these different takes on it, and it is sometimes the magazines would get a bit like, where's bloody Street Fighter 3, especially if they were more into like Mortal Kombat and stuff like that, when that started becoming a big thing.
I suppose it was like that time's like Game of the Year, and Game of the Year with special edition added on and stuff like that. I suppose it's their way of doing it, which is crazy. Just think they did that on cartridge back in the day. It was like almost unheard of, wasn't it, really? Not many other game series did it.
Of course, one of the reasons why is because the main reason why they did it was because they had to compete with all the illegal bootlegs of Street Fighter 2. That was the whole reason. That shouldn't be forgotten. The Rainbow Edition, like the ones with lots of fireballs, and generally like the editions that just made the play a hell of a lot faster.
Did you play the Black Belt ones, Larry?
I did, yeah. Our local newsagent had them. It's like they always had 2 machines, that and WrestleFest, and it was always like bootleg. I think all the newsagents had bootleg Street Fighters. I don't think anybody ever owned an official one.
I think my local swimming pool had one.
Yeah, they were everywhere, because we had them at our village college. We go in like their sort of youth club, and they had Street Fighter 2 there. And I was like, I put my money in, and I ended up doing like 50 fireballs, and then your character would teleport, and then your hurricane kick across the screen and keep going. And it was quite fun at first, but after a few matches, you just think this is completely broken, because the computer would end up teleporting into the character you've already beaten up before, so you're not getting anywhere. Obviously, Dan, you'd played a number of the Street Fighter games, but also got more addicted to Mortal Kombat. Did you sort of, with your Mega Drive, did you get the Champion Edition version on that?
Only retrospectively, if I'm honest. I was really, I sort of associated Street Fighter with the Super Nintendo. So it almost felt a bit weird buying it for the Mega Drive. And honestly, the original Mortal Kombat, I remember, was such a bare bones game that I didn't really get into the mechanics of those games until I borrowed Mortal Kombat 3 off a friend and realised that, wow, they've actually progressed this game like significantly. There's a lot more to do with this, and that actually made me want to go back and play Street Fighter. And by that point, I think we had a neighbour or someone had a Super Nintendo, and then that's when we got back into playing the game a little bit more then as well. So regarding differences though, like I didn't really know much about them, if I'm honest. Probably not the best person to pull in for this, am I?
Not pulling your weight, sir. I suppose these questions for Kim and Larry, because with these updates, did you have to be quite persuasive to your parents to buy these sort of versions of like Champion or Turbo? They cost £50 or maybe £65, a pop on cartridge. Did you attempt to sort of, get those as well?
Yeah. Usually did get them, but they're like Christmas things.
Yeah.
Street Fighter 2 and like the SNES was a Christmas thing, and it was the only SNES game I had for like months.
That's when you get good at a game. When all you've got is you in that game.
What wasn't for me? I had a Super Wildcard, so I just pirated stuff. So I got it for like £2 out of the back of a newspaper. So
naughty Larry. Naughty.
Those are the days, yes. And also the Super Nintendo version of Super Street Fighter 2 was an absolute pain in the arse to get in the UK because it was a Future Zone exclusive.
That's right. I had to buy it from Electronics Boutique. That was obviously Future Zone became that,
Yes.
but it had Electronics Boutique exclusive sticker on it, and it was like $59. I think it was $49.99. I remember getting that on my birthday. Go to town after school. My mum took me to town. Miserable bloody weather for September, which is not really surprising. And picking it up, and it was. To me, it was because I was so excited to play Super Edition. I had already played it on the Mega Drive, but it just looked a bit green and nasty on the Mega Drive for some reason. And maybe because of the RF output, no one was using RGB SCART leads, at that point. And
Sounds quite crunchy as well, wasn't it? I believe.
Really bad. Yeah, the sound. That was kind of an issue. Speech for Mega Drive versions in general, really crunchy and horrible. The music in the first one, the music in Special Champion Edition isn't too bad. It's worse in Super Street Fighter 2. They changed it. They screwed it
But
up.
the SNES version had a lot of the voice clips taken out, I believe.
yeah, I think it's a lot of missing things like round one fight. I think it's missing
I
that.
think they kind of either taken them out or they truncated a lot of them.
Well, it's on a smaller cartridge in the Mega Drive version because the Mega Drive one was 40 meg and the Super Nintendo one was 32. Yeah.
Super Mega Power.
It was like, I think it was the biggest ever Mega Drive cartridge at the time, wasn't it? Yeah.
I think Super Street Fighter 2, yeah, for raw power is the biggest.
Obviously, as we were all reading video game magazines at the time, obviously there was news of a live action film. So Dan, did you sort of, did you first hear about it through the video game magazines and the cast list? Who was going to be in it? Did that get you excited?
We big interaction films. Me and my dad for the time. It was like I remember. I think he might have even come to me first because what's his name? Is it Van Damme was in it, and I was a huge fan of Van Damme. Van Damme was like the one I wanted. I always wanted to go and see over Schwarzenegger and all the others because I was just so into films like Bloodsport. I absolutely. We watched Bloodsport a month ago, and it's cheese on toast. It's brilliant. I absolutely love it. And he chops his little hat off in front of his snapback. But I love that film. Van Damme's going to be in it. Like, who, Carly? I don't care. Could we just go see Van Damme? And I actually went to the cinema. I remember it was like, because I didn't get to go to the cinema too much when I was younger. And we went there with my dad and like 3 of my cousins, and I was the youngest by quite a way out of my cousins. And by the end of the film, I was the only person out of all of us that was still awake, literally.
Oh, man.
And I remember as a kid, I was loving.
Did you love it though? Did you love it?
As a kid, I thought it was incredible. Like this is what all Hollywood films should be made like, like genuinely. But you just get so pumped up that those characters that you know are in a film, and it unless it's so obviously bad, like so obviously. I remember watching like the Mario movie when I was a kid and just thinking to myself, what is this? What is going on here? But then you can relate the Street Fighter movie to the game to some degree. And it was the same when I watched Mortal Kombat. Obviously I was more into Mortal Kombat, but I say this quite a lot, but after watching Mortal Kombat, I just remember stopping like, at the end of the film when they'd done their big, their poses, looking at my friend that was the greatest film I've ever seen in my life. Like so I was fully sucked into him. I'm a movie lover, not a movie critic.
So Kim, I know you're a big fan of the movie. Did you have a similar situation to Dan, or read about it in the gaming magazines first?
Yeah, reading magazines. Reading magazines, getting hyped out. I didn't see it in the cinema. I had a pirated copy.
Going down the Larry route.
Yes. I had a pirate version, which I watched loads. Absolutely. At the time, loved it. All the way. Watched it again and again and again. Nowadays, I mean, you obviously know a bit more about the production. It was a bit of chaos. Jean-Claude was just all over the shop. Capcom were interfering. Made sure to get every single character in.
Yeah, Captain Sawada, everybody's favourite.
I mean,
oh yeah,
but yeah, I think they wanted Captain Sawada to be. Capcom wanted him to be Ryu. Because he was in I think he was in the Japanese commercials for the game.
Because I looked up those commercials and I saw one, I think it was a Street Fighter 2 Champion or Turbo advert from Japan with a guy as Ryu, and it didn't really look like the actor playing Captain Sawada. So maybe there's another sort of commercial that's not been put out.
Maybe, yeah. I think I just remember seeing one. How many times does he appear in the film? What, 3?
Yeah,
badly
much.
dubbed over each time, obviously, because couldn't speak a lick of English.
He is like the Poochie there in that film. He's like, where's the water? Where's...
Him and T-Hawk. T-Hawk, I think, appears, twice?
T-Hawk's the worst casting, I think.
The only way you know that he's called T-Hawk is because they say T-Hawk.
And he spends the entire movie with a plaster on his head. I remember. Yeah. So, Larry, did you see it at the cinema? Did you read it in the magazines and find about it?
No, pirate.
Oh,
Yeah.
Dear, oh dear.
Around the bootleg, yeah.
Same.
Dodgy bloke from my dad's work, back of the van.
Did you love it? Did you love it though, Larry?
Yeah, I was quite hyped up for it because Meme Machines were just promoting the hell out of it. They had like on location screenshots in their magazines and that saying, "Oh, it's going to be like the biggest film of your generation. It's going to be Star Wars of the '90s. This film, how hype up it's going to be." And it was all right, It was fun. It was campy and fun.
I think, like many of us watching it, were just kind of waiting for them to do the special moves.
Oh, the special moves, yeah, they're so bad. When they put them in,
yeah, sure.
they're so bad, and the fight scenes are just so. Especially because, again, as I say, because the first cut was a bit more explicit, but they got 15. Then they cut it so much that it actually ended up being PG. And they literally had to put in Guile, post-overdub Guile saying shit in one scene to get the 12 in the very last minute. So yeah, some of the fight scenes, you wouldn't even realise that Vega actually gets killed. He actually dies in the fight with Ryu. He lands on his claws. That is what's supposed to happen, but it's so badly cut. It's been so cut to hell that you actually don't really see it in the film. I think because I think Ryu does what apparently is a Hadouken. Just goes like, ugh!
It's like someone taking a photograph on set and he does the camera flash.
Yeah, and it just has a little flash of like, and it's like, oh.
Well, when they had the Zhangji versus E Honda match, they started putting loads of Godzilla noises over it, didn't they?
Yes.
When they're fighting.
Nah, that's Zangief's the unsung hero, I think, of the movie. So many good lines. Quick, change the channel.
You got paid. He's like,
that's probably the best line in the whole film.
Did you think that it sort of was better than Super Mario Brothers Street Fighter, or was it sort of a?
It's more on tone to the film. I mean, Super Mario Brothers is bloody Blade Runner for kids, really, isn't it? So.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I never cared for that one.
It's still like that to this day as well. I mean, I think they've nailed it a bit more now. When I go and see Sonic the Hedgehog movie with my son, he knows what it is, and it makes sense, to the world of Sonic the Hedgehog. And he's only really got a few games to go on. Actually, he's only got the original games to go on because he only plays 1 to CD on his thingy. So it's quite cool. But I put on. He said, "Oh my god, there's a Mario movie." I'm like, "I don't know, mate." Okay, and I put it on, and he was just like, "What is this?" I mean, look, that's Yoshi. That's Yoshi. Is it? He was so confused. I'm like, how did they do it to this film? And this is another complete kick-off. But one thing I noticed with online people online is something. I don't know if it's like a YouTuber or someone that will spend their love on a particular film. But at the moment, there seems to be a surge of people all of a sudden loving the Mario movie. There seems to be loads of people talking about how much they love the Mario movie. If you talked about
I've seen that
2 or 3 years ago, everyone hated that movie. It was really, really bizarre. That's another kickoff. But
quick, let's check the current opinion of the AVGN. I can't form my own opinions about him.
It might be that because it wasn't it Re-Res talking about it on an AVGN Cinemassacre movie thingy that they did.
Maybe.
I think that might have been where it started. I don't know.
Well, they did do a Blu-ray, didn't they? Release of Mario Brothers about a year or two ago, which had a nice sort of meaty making of. But I think when you sort of understand its production problems, you can sympathise with how it sort of turned out. So I suppose in the same case with Street Fighter the movie.
It's a similar story to Street Fighter.
But I think if you look at Super Mario Brothers and sort of production design, it is visually very interesting, but the story's just all over the place, and the tone, is kind of, as Larry mentioned, the tone is
really bizarre.
Yeah, it's not Blade Runner. It's Blade Runner for kids. It's not Super Mario Brothers.
It's nothing like. It's completely removed from anything that Mario is traditionally supposed to be.
So, Street Fighter the movie had an arcade game and one ported to the PlayStation and Sega Saturn that played a lot different. Did you play the console game first or the arcade?
I got both. I was working in Future Zone at the time, and I borrowed it from work and never gave it back. So, so you're not.
They didn't want it.
No. Well,
This podcast is turning into Larry's thieving hour, isn't it? Like, how much did he nick?
well, they sacked me before I got a chance to get it back.
Did you play the movie games, Kim?
I don't think I did. You know, I don't have any recollection of playing it. Not even in the arcade. I think the general opinion on those was like they're bad.
What about you, Dan? Did you skip them entirely?
I watched people playing it in the arcade because you've only got a few pound coins or however much it was. You had to choose wisely, and I definitely chose wisely. I saw people playing it, and then obviously I've played the console versions retrospectively. But,
yeah. I played the movie arcade game first, and I played it at Alton Towers. It's in 96, and Street Fighter the movie was there, and I was playing that, and I knew. Because I had Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the 3DO, so I kind of knew all the super moves, and I was playing with Guile, being Van Damme, and doing his super move, and all these kids started crowding around me. So the only time I played an arcade game, I had like this crowd of people around me.
Suddenly got the following.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god, it's like I'm a pro.
I feel like I'm in the Wizard.
Exactly. So that was my kind of experience of it, and obviously, playing it on. I got it on Sega Saturn, and it was just like.
Well, Capcom completely remade it and used the the Super Street Fighter Turbo's engine to base it on, because that's why it feels more Street Fighter-y than the original. Because the arcade version was basically a poor man's knockoff of Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that really, I think, prejudiced people against it. I think because by that time, most people thought, oh, no, the film was what it was, and it was like the digitized characters people were really turned off.
Yeah, because the arcade one was pretty much a lot of juggling, and it was really quick and too many frames of animation, so difficult to sort of time your moves because your character's still doing their sweep or the sort of a punch animation.
So they're going sack through and
pretty much, Larry. Yeah. When sort of Mortal Kombat hit the scene, especially Mortal Kombat 2, because Mortal Kombat 2 was going up against, I think around the time in the magazines, it was like Super Street Fighter 2 or Mortal Kombat 2. That was the comparison reviews. So Dan, was the one that sort of persuaded you to sort of go towards Mortal Kombat 2 because that was getting more of the press?
I actually missed out on Mortal Kombat 2. I got Mortal Kombat, then I got Mortal Kombat 3 after playing it at a friend's.
So what were you doing between?
Yeah, playing Aladdin.
I'd probably buying Sonic 3, Sonic Spinball, Sonic 2, because, I was such a Sega nerd. Don't worry, I grew out of it, though. And, I was definitely always pushing towards the Mortal Kombat side. I feel like I was born in the wrong country. If I was born in America, I'd have a lot more to say, wouldn't I? I don't know.
We'd be going about the NES you would be all the time.
Yeah. NES. Oh, no, not NES. Sorry. I'll take that back.
The NES.
It's the NES.
So, Kim, did Mortal Kombat eat up most of your time and replace Street Fighter 2 during this period?
Love both of them. Love Mortal Kombat 2. That played that to death on Mega Drive. Mortal Kombat 2. Mortal Kombat 1, I rented a lot on Mega Drive. And I remember my memory of Mortal Kombat and a lot of the other fighting games was Mortal Kombat 2 was always going to have people on it.
Yeah.
So as like a little kid, I'd go up and be like, oh, challenge. Like, I'm 9 years old. I'm going up to these fucking 16-year-old teenagers, right? So just get told to fuck off. 90% of the time, literally just fuck off.
The original Mortal Kombat is a really good rentable game, isn't it? There's a perfect rentable game.
I still love the first game.
Retrospectively now, looking at it, it's as basic as one of those games probably can be for the time, though. The original.
What about you, Larry? Did the Mortal Kombat craze take over and eat up most of your time?
I always prefer Mortal Kombat. I think it's because I don't know if it's because I'm left-handed or like using a joypad over a joystick that the moves are a lot easier to do on Mortal Kombat, because Mortal Kombat moves like back, forward.
Yeah.
And just sort of having to rub your things. So I remember everybody getting blisters. Everybody getting blisters playing the Super Nintendo version of Street Fighter. From doing the Hadokens over and over. Yeah, he's getting
on that hard D-pad.
Massive blisters on their thumbs, but in Mortal Kombat it's just back forward, so it's a lot easier to get off.
It is. I think actually, looking back, I think I was actually a little bit like turned off by how hardcore you had to be into Street Fighter a little bit. Like I thought, I don't want to start that path, I'd rather play something easy. I think I don't know. I still think like that now. If I see Street Fighter there, someone says you want to play Street Fighter, I'm like, no, there's no point. I'm definitely gonna lose.
Don't want to be humiliated.
Did you think sort of Street Fighter had sort of started to lose its sort of momentum and popularity around Super Street Fighter 2, or probably the movie had had put a dent in it, or maybe just down to the fact that we now had Mortal Kombat 2, we had Virtua Fighter on the horizon, and Tekken.
I think it's just diminutive returns as well.
yeah.
There's just so much Street Fighter 2 everywhere that people are getting a little bit tired, lethargic.
I definitely felt like that.
Yeah, at the time it did feel like diminished returns. I mean, obviously nowadays we look at like Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and most realise like how amazing it is. Like it's like pretty much the perfect Street Fighter for a lot of people.
Getting frustrated there was no Street Fighter 3 as well. I mean, when we're getting that.
Yes, that was always frustration. And then you had started having obviously not necessarily Mortal Kombat by the time you get 9.5, but definitely the 3D beat 'em ups that were coming. Your Virtua Fighter 2s, Tekken, especially when Tekken 2 came out.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
that was the time when, like me personally, I didn't really play like. I mean, obviously, I had the alpha. The alpha games are great. I even had like the SNES one.
Toshinden, you had to eat shit because it wasn't coming out over here for ages. Yeah.
If you look at things like Tekken, Virtual Fighter, and compare it to Street Fighter, say Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, in terms of the depth of gameplay, look at Tekken and Virtua Fighter, for example. They don't have any super moves, special moves. It's all just like grapples, push, or like a double kick, and the combos are generally quite limited to what you could do. So Street Fighter, I suppose, at its core, still had a deeper gameplay there.
Oh, definitely.
It does. Yeah, it does. Definitely.
I mean, Tekken obviously and Virtua Fighter got more complex over time, but certainly when their first editions are very basic. I mean, and Larry mentioned Toshinden, which is even more basic than that. Like, they all got deeper and deeper, especially when you get into like from 2 to 3 Tekken-wise. Virtua Fighter was a very experimental. I mean, you had times it didn't work like Virtua Fighter 3.
Well, Virtua Fighter was trying to go for more realism, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah. It was in the end. They did all kind of coexist in the end. Like especially once Capcom kind of stopped trying to do things like. I mean, I was never a big fan of like the EX games.
No, I wasn't a fan of those at all.
Street Fighter going 3D
No.
at the time, anyway.
So as we saw, sort of, Capcom, return to sort of Street Fighter, but going with prequels with the Alpha series. Then we finally got Street Fighter 3, and which didn't really get the reception that Capcom wanted. But also, as we saw, Capcom sort of continue with the games, but they often pulled upon characters from Street Fighter 2 to sort of get people back into it. What keeps people coming back to Street Fighter 2 itself? Why has it sort of lasted so many years and had so many compilations released that people still, talk about it and still play it to this day?
Street Fighter 2 was the perfect blend of simplicity, but at the same time, like, having so much depth within that simplicity that you can absolutely master it to a level where it can go to tournaments and it's still the game that people play in tournaments. It's why sometimes, even you look at things like Smash Brothers and stuff, a lot of people will go back to one where they just about refined it, and then everything after that they just kept trying to add on to that same mechanic. Like if you look at most people will go for Brawl, which is, I'm going to get this right, I think that's the second Smash Brothers, and then everything after that... Melee, Melee was the second Smash Brothers, and then everything after that was they just kept trying to add to it. There was too much to play with, and there was too many things that would ruin other characters and what have you. So I feel like Street Fighter 2 was just like the perfect balanced game.
What about you, Larry?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a lot of nostalgia in that as well, because since Street Fighter was so dominant in the arcades, a lot of people who couldn't afford it on home computers and stuff like that, just give their kids 20p to play it in the arcade and that, they sort of grew up playing it like that, right? Because that's the only thing they could afford to play as well. So they brought up their kids playing it as well, because it's always what I used to play as a kid. So I think it's because it was so accessible to people, no matter where they come from.
I think I generally agree with everyone else. I think another part of it is it seems like in the fighting game community in general, like the best games don't really ever go away. Like they never really get replaced. Like so you still have new people picking up. It's not as if like, because Turbo is played like all around every year, but it's not like it's still like the same old gits now, I suppose, who've been playing Turbo since the 90s. Like, you do get new people playing these games, same as you get
new gits playing them, yeah.
you get new gits playing them. Same as Dan mentioned I mean, how old is Smash Brothers Melee now? Probably well over 15 years old. But these games in the fighting community just seem to be time. Same with Marvel vs. Capcom, like the classic old ones of that.
Yeah.
Like, fighting game community seems to be very keen on preserving the old games, along with then gradually bringing in the newer games, as long as they work, into the fold. Like, you always have those consistents. Like, and that's something that kind of is it's something that's getting to be more and more the case in other genres, but because fighting games always had that kind of esports connection, like before any other genre really, I think that's probably one of the reasons for why it's lasted for so long and will continue to last. I mean, I don't envision a future where people won't be playing Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo at a competitive level. It's always going to be around. It's not going to be replaced.
Yeah, that is true. Well, the final question I would say is, which version of Street Fighter 2 is your favourite? And who is your favourite character and why? I'll put that question to Larry first.
I don't know. I think probably Turbo. I think it started going a bit silly afterwards. After Turbo, Super onwards. I think the new characters are pretty pointless. I mean, T-Hawk is just basically slightly different Zangief and stuff like that. And so things like that. I think the only character people only care about. DJ is Guile. DJ is another Guile.
We've really laid into poor T-Hawk this podcast. It's like, yeah, the only one worthy of Super Street Fighter 2 is Cammy.
Yeah, Cammy.
All the others can sod off.
What about you, Dan? What's your favourite version of Street Fighter 2 and the characters?
I probably got quite. I lived with a guy at one point, and we was playing a lot of Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 3 Double Impact on the Dreamcast. Got really into that. But memory-wise, the one I'd probably go back to is Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and I was just always fascinated by Blanca, so I got quite good at Blanca.
Yeah, I was got Blanca. Blanca's my favourite as well.
Oh, what about you, Kim?
Now, there is a sentimentality that I would want me to say the World Warrior, just because it was the first one. It was obviously so influential. But objectively, it has to be Turbo. Has to be Super Turbo. It's the best. I'll always go for either Dulcim or Bulwark.
Oh, Rubber Bandy Gandy Man. That's what we used to call him in schools and that. We never called him Dulcim. He was always a Rubber Bandy Gandy Man. So.
Well, it's interesting because Larry's, and Dan both like Turbo. Kim likes Super Turbo. I always thought Super Turbo was my favourite because it was the most sort of gave you the most sort of special moves. The super moves were there. You could unlock Akuma as well. But in terms of sort of, because my favourite character was always Ken. I always felt Ken was a bit weakened by Super Turbo, so I'm probably going to go with Hyper Fighting. Well, Turbo itself, the first Turbo. I think that's where they got everything so finessed in that version before they introduced the new characters and they slowed the gameplay down again. So I'm probably go with Hyper Fighting.
Yeah, Hyper Fighting is so fast. It's kind of hard to go back to. For me, it's almost like it's too fast.
In terms of its speed and the inputs and so forth, when it's slower, I find it a little bit more difficult to do the combos and timing. So when I always played Turbo so much, I'm just so used to the timing and hit spots. So I'm probably going to go with that one. Well, everyone, thanks for sharing your thoughts on Street Fighter 2. The conclusion is really, me and Kim still love Street Fighter, and Larry and Dan were Mortal Kombat fans at heart.
Well, I'm not adverse to Street Fighter. I just preferred. It
was easier to play, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's easy to play. Yeah, I don't know if it's like I said. I don't know if it was because I'm used to playing on a pad or I'm left-handed or something, but it was easier for me to play.
If I was using a charge character like Guile or Blanca with a joypad, I get such bad cramp. But with an arcade stick, so much easier. But I always, most of my experience, I think most of us was playing on a joypad. These fighting games,
I know. I always have to have hard punch and hard kick on the shoulder buttons, no matter what controller now, as well. It just feels weird not to have them on there.
Well everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. A big thank you to my guests, and if you had a similar experience to us playing Street Fighter 2, please let us know in the comments. Okay everyone, take care and goodbye.